The president continues to push his Middle East mood board proposal to somehow remove all Palestinians from Gaza and turn it into what he calls the Riviera of the Middle East. In a deeply divided and dangerous region in a deeply difficult time, this proposal has been criticized as a deeply unserious, even ridiculous one. And overnight, the president seemed to double down on the ridiculousness. He shared a fake AI-generated video, unclear exactly where it originated, on his social media. Now, if you haven't seen it, it's kind of a fever dream of a fantasy of what Trump Gaza would be like. Take a look.
Tunnels coming to set you free, bringing the light for all to see. No more tunnels, no more fear. Trump Gaza is finally here. Trump Gaza shining bright, golden future, a brand new life. Feast and dance, the deal is done. Trump Gaza, number one. Trump Gaza, shining bright. Golden future, a brand new life. Feast and dance, the deal is done. Trump Gaza, number one.
Well, as absurd as it is, the details, such as they are, the broad brush strokes of the president's vision for Gaza are also astounding. Under the president's proposal, the United States would take control of Gaza, effectively seizing a sovereign territory, one that Israel, by the way, has, of course, been fighting in for more than a year and still doesn't control.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site. I do see a long-term ownership position, and I see it bringing great stability to that part of the Middle East.
The U.S. is going to own the Gaza Strip, which, according to the president, would be possible without United States troops boots on the ground.
Basically, the United States would view it as a real estate transaction where we'll be an investor in that part of the world, and no rush to do anything. We wouldn't need soldiers at all. That will be taken care of by others. And the investments are taken care of by others also.
Others. Integral to the president's plan is removing the millions of Palestinians who already live in Gaza so that the development can take place. He mentioned Egypt and Jordan as relocation spots, something the leaders of those countries say is a non-starter. And as for a right to return, according to the president, that doesn't seem to be in the cards.
I don't think people should be going back to Gaza. I think that Gaza has been very unlucky for them. They've lived like hell. They lived like you're living in hell. Gaza is not a place for people to be living.
Well, later that night, our Caitlin Collins attempted to get some clarity on the point.
Just to follow up on what you were saying about the Gazans leaving Gaza, going to other countries. One, where exactly are you suggesting that they should go? And two, are you saying they should return after it's rebuilt? And if not, who do you envision living there?
I envision a world, people living there, the world's people. I think you'll make that into an international, unbelievable place. I think the potential in the Gaza Strip is unbelievable. And I think the entire world, representatives from all over the world will be there, and they'll live there. Palestinians also. Palestinians will live there.
Some Palestinians, along with the world's people. The White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, tried to clean up some of the debris the next day, claiming that Palestinians would just be temporarily located.
The president has made it clear that they need to be temporarily relocated out of Gaza for the rebuilding of this effort. Again, it's a demolition site right now. It's not a livable place for any human being. And I think it's actually quite evil to suggest that people should live in such dire conditions.
Well, that's what she said, not what he said days later.
I think that it's a big mistake to allow people, the Palestinians or the people living in Gaza, to go back yet another time. And we don't want Hamas going back. And think of it as a big real estate site. And the United States is going to own it and will slowly, very slowly, we're in no rush.
So he elaborated on that idea during his sit-down with Bret Baier ahead of the Super Bowl, saying in no uncertain terms that Palestinians would not even want to come back.
No, they wouldn't, because they're going to have much better housing, much better. In other words, I'm talking about building a permanent place for them, because if they have to return now, it will be years before you could ever. It's not habitable. It will be years before it could happen.
Now, allies of the president have suggested this could all be the opening salvo in a negotiation or attempt to push Arab nations into formulating their own plan, and they are working on alternative plans, none of which, it seems, involve golden statues of Donald Trump and cash raining from the sky. Joining me now is former Trump White House Communications Director Alyssa Farah Griffin. I mean, is this a sign that he just doesn't give an F and put out this video, overnight?
Yes. So Donald Trump is in the trolling phase of his presidency. He has such popularity within the Republican Party. There is virtually nothing that he can do that is going to make folks walk away from him. Just a few days ago, he called Zelensky a dictator. And Republicans kind of complained a little bit and are already some in Congress gearing up, hoping he'll run for a third term. That's the position he's in. So I think that he sort of backed up into this idea of developing Gaza. It was something that occurred to him. This is my theory. And then his staff around him have to backfill that and turn it into an actual policy. It's an untenable position. I don't have to tell you that this has been disputed territory for millennia.
I mean, it's insane.
There are extremist factions that will feel like they have claim to the land. But I really think
it's a potential mobilizing thing that terrorist groups around the world could rally around.
That was actually my thought when I saw the AI-generated video, because this White House, they love to troll and they kind of love the digital currency of the meme world. Like, they put out an ASMR thing of people being deported, and now it's this. But the problem is there are extremist elements in this world who will see that, and that's actually inciting. That's actually something saying we are going to relocate Palestinians from their land, develop it, and it's not... It's
sort of the core of the issue.
It's really, yeah. It's not kind of dancing around the core issues there. But I think that Trump in this second term, he's seeing things through the sense of dollar signs. He's seeing things like the real estate developer he always was. And it's going to take advisors around him putting some guardrails on that, or he can walk himself into some complicated things.
It's interesting, though. I mean, given the amount of blood and tears and, decades and decades of global, angst and meetings and thoughts on the region, to just have a U.S. president just doing this, it's extraordinary.
It's extraordinary, but here's the thing. Donald Trump has a lot to be proud of in the Middle East. I think that a lot of Americans feel like he's being more aggressive in getting Israeli hostages, including American hostages, out. They think that the Abraham Accords were a tremendous breakthrough.
Right, and it was it was a different way of looking at the issue, and this had ripple effects that maybe were unintended, but it was a bold thing.
And that was a serious diplomatic effort between nations that took years to get underway. This now feels very ad hoc, and it almost feels like a going backward in the way that he's approaching the region at a more tumultuous time than his first term in office.
Because the U.S. was on the cusp, or Israel was on the cusp of a deal perhaps with Saudi Arabia for recognition, which arguably is one of the reasons Hamas decided to do what they did on October 7th, to stop that deal.
Yes, and I think what the Trump White House would tell you is this is all part of a negotiating tactic, and it's about putting pressure on Hamas to get more hostages out. I'm just not sure if I see it that way. There was a pause in the ceasefire after his first comments about basically leveling Gaza, and I think this very comfortable, confident Donald Trump, there are some strengths to it, but on the diplomatic stage, it can be incredibly dangerous.
Alyssa Farah Griffin, thanks so much. Appreciate it. A lot more ahead tonight. Several more accidents, incidents, and near collisions in what's already been a deadly 4 weeks in commercial aviation. We'll have the latest on that and some perspective on what the problems are in the sky. And more in the Middle East. In Israel, Memorial